want to use this little blue button to talk about two things that took me a little bit too long to learn how to do in Figma. The first of those is instance swap properties, and the second of those is going to be maintaining the color of icon components that are nested inside other components. And so to get us started, we're going to place one of these icons in this button and then update a bunch of properties to have a nice button component that lets you switch between some icons. First things first, we need all of these icons to be components. Instance swap property works with components on your file. We do want each of these icons to be an individual component rather than a component set. This is something that took me a while to get my head around, but in essence, you don't want each icon in your design file to be carrying the baggage of every other icon in your design file as a variant. It's fine with 4, but imagine you've got 100, if not 1,000 icons in your design system. Keeping them all as separate components and using the instance swap property is actually going to be more efficient in the long run. So we'll select all of our icons. We're going to go to the component menu and create multiple components, one for each icon. From there, we can place them inside our button and update some of the styling to match the look and feel of our button. We already set up a text property for the text here in our button, but with the icon selected, there's a couple of properties that we can add here. First things first, we might not always want an icon in our button, so over in the layer menu here, we can create a boolean property called show icon, and we'll leave it set to true for now, but this will let us toggle the icon on and off in placements of this button. And then also with the icon still selected, we can see the version of the icons that we have. We have this edit icon placed inside the button. Next to that is going to be another property button that will let us set up this instance swap. And from here you can see that we've already selected edit, this pencil, as a preferred value, but we can add more. We can add every other icon here in our file. Now what if we added more icons to our file? We could come back in and manually add them. We could deselect this and literally let any component in our file be placed inside this component. Or a shorthand, especially if we're going to be adding more icons, would be to actually just frame the icons that we want to be able to use in this button in a dedicated frame. So if we frame this, call it something like button icons, you'll see when we go back into that instance swap menu, we go back into preferred values, we can just have it select everything in the button icons frame. This way, if we added some more icons to the set, if we put them in the frame, they're automatically selected. So we'll go ahead and call this icons and we will create this property. Now, when we place an instance of this button, we can update the text with that text property. We can toggle the icon off and on with the boolean property, and we can swap between those selected icons with the instance swap property. And this is where we're going to run into the second problem that I've been having with nesting icons in other components. And that is what happens if I switch to home, for instance. It's going to revert back to the coloring of the original icon components, not my overridden coloring that I applied here. And you'll see this is true for every one of these icons, including that original edit icon that we had placed. And what's happening here actually has to do with the way that the icons layers are named and set up. So if I select all of the icon components here and then press enter to reveal their insides, essentially, you can see that 3 out of 4 of them have their vectors named vector, and one has been maliciously renamed by me to oops to demonstrate this concept here. Now, a lot of icon sets have this set up correctly already. Material Icons is very, very good about that. But essentially, what's going on here is that you want every icon in your file, if you're using them in this instance swap property, to have consistent layer hierarchy and naming. So we want these to all be named vector. If you're making icons yourself, if you're grabbing icons from a variety of sources, you might find that these names are not consistent. They're not always called vector. There might be more than one layer inside these icons, and this is where the outline stroke tool and the unify tool are going to come in handy. If you ever run into this problem, you just need to make sure that there's a consistent hierarchy in each button and that all of the names are the same. So if I call this one vector, sorry for that spelling there, and now they are all matching. If we go back to this instance of our button and switch between icons, you will see now they are inheriting that overridden value from the styling of the button. And if we add, for instance, an inactive state for our button, we update the styling here to have some gray and gray, you'll see that the icons are going to also match that variant styling as well. And it's going to be the same for all of them. And that is essentially how you set up an instance swap property and make sure that your icons are going to match the overridden styles that you apply wherever you decide to embed them.